LinkedIn Live for what month are we in? November. And we've got a great panel here this evening, starting with Lewis Douglas. We've got Bubba, we've got Chris Townsend, we've got Megan Van Patten. And today we're going to talk about, I think, is the UK pinnacle of higher education in the UK, the College of Esports. It's something that I've had involvement in for 5 years, since it was before it existed. And I've sat from the sidelines and watched this grow and develop. And I'm delighted to say this evening, we've got 3 people who are heavily involved with that, as well as the founder of the Esports Trade Association. So in terms of panels today, we're very lucky. And what we'll do is before we go on to the discussion about the College of Esports, I just want to go around and get everybody to introduce themselves, because we've got such a variety on the panel and different backgrounds and different ages and all those things. And it's just quite interesting to see how we've all come together at this point. So my introduction is really brief. My name's Nik Turner. I'm chair of the Education Committee for the Esports Trade Association. I'm not important, so let's go straight on to those that are, and we'll start with yourself, Lewis. Lewis, did you just want to give an introduction to yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Lewis Douglas, and I'm the program lead for games here at the College of Esports, and I'm also the course leader for our international esports business and digital media and digital marketing programs as well. So I look after quite a few of our programs here, talking about how we're going to improve them and how we're going to develop them, but also how our students are going to get the necessary skills they need to go into the careers they want to get after university, essentially.
Okay. Yeah, carry on.
So yeah, I'm just getting kind of used to still saying Lewis Douglas, because I did get married a couple of months ago, and it's one of those things that I'm not quite used to just yet.
You did a fine job. Let's go international, but UK based now. Bubba, not that you need much of an introduction, but just let people know who may not know who you are.
Yeah, sure. I'm glad to be here, Nick. It's exciting to see Megan again and be on the Esports Trade Association content, because it's always been a fun ride, and I get to be the program lead for events here in the UK at the College of Esports, and it's very exciting. I am 2 months and 3 days into being a United Kingdom resident. Now, not citizen yet, but then two months, and my wife and our kids, we moved over here 2 months ago. And before that, in the States, definitely spent a lot of time in the scholastic space, and also as the president and co-founder of the Video Games and Esports Foundation. And even one of my students are on the call with us today, who I get to learn from them about the events here in UK, and maybe bring a little of that international esports events culture and lifestyle over here.
Well, the first thing I'd like to do, Bubba, is apologise for the British weather. There's nothing that I can actually do about that, but I think probably unless you brought it with you in the last 2 months, I think we've had more rain than I've seen in the last 10 years.
I do hear a lot of apologies
twice today.
Yeah, I do hear a lot of apologies for weather and food over here, so I'm fine. It's really, there's plenty to eat and there's plenty of umbrellas.
Brilliant. And then let's go on to you, Chris. So just talk about your position at College of Esports, because it's quite an interesting one.
Yeah, so my name is Chris Townsend. I'm a second-year student at the College of Esports. As Bubba mentioned, he's my lecturer. So I do international esports business and events management. It's really good fun. We learn lots about esports around the world, mainly about the events. So we learn lots about that. I'm heavily involved with the broadcasts that we have going on at the university. So I work on Student Champs quite a lot. I'm one of the producers for that. And I'm my title is the first year representative on the student council, although I am a second year, so it's a bit confusing. And I also founded the Korean Language and Culture Society. I'm the president of that as well.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Chris. And can I just say, you're more than welcome whenever you like to come around and make my bed, because yours is immaculate. It's absolutely immaculate. Mine never looks like that. And then finally, let's save the best till last. Megan, if you just want to give a quick introduction to yourself, although I think most people probably know who you are.
I'm actually so excited to hear what's going on over in the UK, and here to make a contribution in any way that I can. Thank you for doing this, y'all.
It's a pleasure. Okay, right. So let's get started then, shall we? let's go back to how and where it all started. Now, I don't know how many of the panel are aware of this, but I was on the original validation panel for the degree some 5 years ago. And when I was on that panel, it was nothing. It didn't exist. It was in the mind of kind of like Professor Philip, and he had all of those brilliant ideas, but there wasn't even a classroom at that point. Now, 5 years on, wow, what a journey. So I don't know, maybe Lewis, are you best positioned for this one? Kind of like, how did it develop from nothing to what it is today?
So yeah, it obviously started with an idea with Philip Wilson, or Professor Philip Wilson, one of our founders, and David Thompson, and they came together and kind of came up with this idea of, let's sort of look at a university in College of World Sport as venue, but inevitably, as has probably been said multiple times in the esports space, things changed when COVID hit. So they kind of looked at what was happening and went, esports is very much this emerging space that has taken root at this point. And with the massive interest in games, but also esports during COVID and since COVID, there's a kind of, why are we not training the people who operate that space and make that space what it is? Because inevitably it's a very malleable and a very different skill set to traditional business kind of ventures. And also the other side of it is it moves really quickly, because as we well know, I'm sure most of us are gamers in some fashion here, games get updated every week, or even more often if they're particularly broken. And so you need to be flexible and you need to develop alongside that. And so they've kind of taken that as their ethos and gone, right, we need to create education that trains people up in this way. So yeah, they started the College of Esports as a university, and we started with our first cohort of just over 40 students. And we've just obviously taken our third academic year of cohort, and now we're up to a little shy of 250 students in total. The staff set has grown from a kind of small staff of sort of 3 or 4 people to nearly 20 staff members specializing in different areas and looking after different sectors of the university. But what we've also started doing is building out our space and going, well, actually, we've got things like Chris mentioned with the broadcasts, where in esports, a broadcast is not your traditional stick a camera looking out through a window over a football pitch kind of thing. There's virtual elements there. There's different factors you've got to take into consideration when you're developing these. And so we've grown as an institution to now we have teaching spaces, shockingly, with students. We need to have classrooms for them to go in, but we've just, over this summer, for example, had a large investment from Philip and David to get another gaming hub and a computer lab for us. That will see us through for the next couple of years. It's for us to do games development and games design and games art at the highest level. And hopefully some of those students can then go on to make the next, GTAs and Red Deads. And I'm going to mention those multiple times because that's the company I used to work for at Rockstar. And again, it's that having that business mindset going, actually, let's get people through the door who've got some industry experience and also have an interest and passion for education, and build them and put them in front of the classroom so that they can also support those students and really give them the most valuable insight they can into what they might do in jobs. Because inevitably, as esports, you've no doubt heard it, Nik, as a teacher, you kind of get that, well, if you're not a player, what else is there to do in esports? And the more you find out, the more jobs you go, wait, how is this in this field? Because there's all these other jobs behind it that need to make that player be on screen and also operate at the level they are. It's no different to any other sport athlete, and we need to start thinking about it in that way. So that's what we do as a university. We are training, hopefully, not only the next esports professionals in terms of players, but also all the other jobs that go into that. So that could be in the broadcast side, that could be in the actual games development side, that could be in a networking event related to esports. It could be the digital marketing teams. It's kind of fulfilling all of those criteria.
Well, I think that's what you've just given us there, Lewis, is a really excellent overview of the development of the university. And many educators around the world will be maybe particularly interested in the figure of 40 students in year 1, year 3, 240, was it 240, 250 students. Now, in the space of 3 years for a university that didn't exist at that point, to get to those level of numbers is, it's a testament to everything that you've achieved there. And I think one thing that's quite important and it links quite well to the next question, is that you talked about all those different career pathways. And I know something that College of Esports has done and has done very well is that it's not one esports course. There are lots of different variations on that course. So, for example, Bubba, I think from memory, you're the program leader for events management
Correct.
and senior lecturer, and Chris, you're on the esports business course. So, who, I don't know, maybe Bubba, did you want to talk me through the way that it's structured, those different ranges of courses? Because I know for a fact, through the work that I do, when I was looking at UCAS, which is how in the UK everyone has to apply to get to university, it's a brilliant marketing tool, but it's also also demonstrates what you do in that you appear so many times because there are so many variations of courses related to esports. So can you just kind of talk me through some of those? Because I think I've got something to learn.
Yeah, I'll throw some in, and Lewis and Chris can add in. And I think it's really, for me, coming over with so many comparisons to make. And this is Lewis hearing me talk about this for the last month, of the differences and how I'm learning the structure here. Because I think Megan and I can attest to what you just mentioned, the UCAS, compared to our financial aid services in the States, of doing multiple overworking applications for tons of universities compared to the maybe logistic blessing here in the UK with just doing one, and all the universities get it. It's pretty cool. Which, even in this space, as you saw a minute ago, there's sustainability because the lights go off and I got to get up and do a jumping jack to make sure the lights go back on. But even this facility that you see in the back of our photos is the velodrome, and that connection that Lewis talked a little bit about, and what Philip talks about is why here, why in Olympic Park, why on this campus, because there's that connection that's beyond the game. And so if we look at the different pathways or degrees, as you may call it in the States, as well as courses or units, the different breakdown, like when Lewis is teaching games design, games art, game development, the benefit there from this university, what I've noticed is you have lecturers like Lewis who worked at Riot, who worked in the game industry, instead of just teachers who are teaching art. There's people who have come from the industry. And me being a big event nerd, the fun that I've had in sports for 20 years and events for so many years, and coming from international side, teaching events, to we have our coaching degree pathway, which is really great, led by two people who are professionals in sports / coaches. I think, is it dodgeball for Nathan, and then a professional, maybe a rugby player for Sam? Is that right, Lewis?
So Sam's done a couple of different sports. Nathan is on Team GB's dodgeball team. So goes all over the world competing in that area. And he does show us that dodgeball is a sport.
Yeah, so it's fun. And then getting to feed back and forth with them on the different coaching that I've done, it's fun to talk and be in that world as well. And then we have, as I'm forgetting, the marketing and media. That's a really fun group of students to work with, because they're all the things that Lewis was just talking about, the things outside the player. So it's well-rounded. And what I definitely love about it is this comparison from all the universities that I work with in the States, the 2,000 different universities that had esports programs, and maybe those 200 or 300 that had some form of a class or a minor or something where they would be teaching esports as a course. But this university is focused on that. It's much different, and it's going to continue to grow, and that's why I came over.
Maybe to turn my microphone on it. And Chris, kind of like from the other side, obviously you're year 2, you're second year now, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I'm second year.
So you're second year. So 2 years ago, you would have been sat finishing your college course or, whatever you were doing, and thought, right, I'm going to go to the College of Esports. How did you navigate through all of those different possible pathways and end up choosing the Bachelor of Arts in International Esports Business?
Yeah, so I mean, a couple of years ago, obviously I was doing my A levels. I was doing subjects that weren't related to esports in the slightest, really. I did the EPQ, which is essentially like a mini dissertation. I studied English language, sociology, and then IT. I wanted to go into law originally, but things sort of changed. I just wanted to do something I enjoyed doing. And after coming to the open day at the College of Esports, seeing the facilities and seeing all of that extracurricular stuff, like working on all the broadcast stuff, that really interested me. So that's why I sort of chose to go and do that. I chose to do my business and events management course specifically because of the transferable skills that I feel the course gives me. Just working on events, it's quite sort of broad experience. So I can work on an esports event, but then later down the line in life, if I want to go and do something else, I have the experience of working on an event. So that's sort of why I picked that.
And when you when you were looking at universities, were you always going to go to the College of Esports, or had you decided, or were you looking at other universities and other courses, and then decided that the College of Esports was the one for you?
Yes. So obviously I was looking at law originally, and I had a bunch of universities listed for that. When things sort of shifted to like an esports focus, I did apply to like the 5 universities that I could apply to on UCAS. But the College of Esports was sort of the main one because of all of the extra stuff. So that was sort of my aim. That's where I wanted to go. I actually applied to come here twice to do 2 courses, but I can't remember what the second one was.
I think it was my course. I think you're applying to digital marketing, and I'm not in any way, shape, or form hurt by that.
And as a student, Chris, what's your schedule? What's your weekly routine? Are you 5 days a week there, or is it 3 days study, but you're there for 5 days because you're doing all the extracurricular stuff that you're doing? What does it look like from a student? Because I know there'll be lots of students, watching. We've got 10,000 esports students across the UK studying the BTEC at level 3 in further education. And they're all going to be making those decisions about what to do at university, whether that's to go on and pursue esports or do something different. So can you explain to them what your weekly schedule looks like and then how that looks across the year?
Yeah. So it does differ a little bit week by week, depending on what's going on. But in terms of lectures, I'm in Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and it's just spread out throughout the day. But then with the tri-curriculum and the other opportunities that are offered to us, I'm usually in on Wednesdays and Thursdays for broadcasts, and then I have my society that I run on Fridays. So I'm in the majority of the week, but if things like need setting up or anything for a broadcast or just going in to help out, I could be in like 5 days of the week, but it just depends on what's going on and what needs doing.
Okay, brilliant. And Lewis, I'd like to just switch back to you now. Chris just mentioned, well, that was good timing. Chris just mentioned the tri-curriculum. Now, obviously, this is something that I'm familiar with from being on the validation panel. It's something that I've been to you guys a few times, and I've heard people talking, and and it's something that you sell effectively. But can you just explain for people who might not know what that tri-curriculum actually means?
Yeah, so I mean, relatively speaking, Chris has done a fantastic job just kind of selling what the tri-curriculum is. Essentially, the tri-curriculum is our approach to learning. So we're not just looking at it from an academic standpoint, although obviously we are a university. So I'm going to say strand number 1 is your academic strand, in terms of you are looking at developing your course, understanding that material, understanding that deep, underpinning theory. The next side of it, or the next part of it, is that work ready kind of coaching and mentoring section where we are developing your skill sets that you need to enter the workforce effectively. So that could be doing things on broadcast where, like Chris says, you're working as part of a team to deliver the student champ stream for British Esports. That could be running an individual stream for our charity partner at Special Effect. That could be working with one of the external groups that we interact with, whether that be the Tri-Service Veterans Group, or that be who else have we done things with? It's been so many at this point. Women in Esports, whether that's doing any of those kind of things. It's working as that team, it's developing those skills and having that mentoring to actually work together effectively as a group, because inevitably in esports and games, often the soft skills are just as important as that deep-rooted theory. And the last one is that element of getting you fully work ready by giving you the skill set you need in a practical sense. So not only is it how to work in a team and coaching and mentoring there, but it is the arm that is the practical skills and development. So that is things like broadcast, but it's doing the job. It's learning what the technical skills are. It's developing the games development work behind the scenes, developing Unreal environments for it. It can also be things like going to Korea and experiencing that international relations there, and how esports in Korea differs to esports in the UK. That fundamentally is the kind of tri-curriculum we talk about. It's all those different branches that come together to make you the complete person and get you ready for the workforce afterwards. But I sold it better than I have in terms of talking about his examples and what he's developed, because it gives you that time to develop those skills in a safe space where you can start having that integrity that we talk about as part of our integrity engine, of really knowing who you are and knowing where you want to go.
I think what you've picked up a few things there, because I was doing ahead of the panel earlier on today. I thought, well, I normally do just a little bit of research of some description, and I did the same thing. When you started to list the things, and I started to write them down, and after a while I was like, I'm going to run out of ink. So I stopped writing this list and just kind of like stopped scrolling, because it was just never ending. But what that also did for me is, having been explained the tri-curriculum in theory some 5 years ago, I just see it. I see it in the posts, like Bryony and in social media. She's great at keeping everybody updated. And over the last 2 years, which is why I've become more involved with you guys, is I see what you do. And I constantly kind of think about those initial discussions and said, you are delivering what you promised. And at the time, I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit kind of like, are they going to be able to do all of this? And to see it all in fruition, to see it all happening is amazing. And that which is why I've got you on the panel tonight, because I wanted to talk about it, and I want you to show off what you've achieved. Now, one thing before we, I want to kind of like just show some practical examples and talk through some practical examples in a bit. But before we do that, I do think it's important that we acknowledge that you have a very significant partnership, an exclusive partnership with the British Esports Federation here in the UK, which is a biggie, And so, can you talk about how that relationship started, what that relationship looks like, what that partnership involves, how it benefits you and how it benefits the students, because I think there'd be lots of universities that would love to have that partnership, but you've got it exclusively for all the reasons that you've just given, to be fair. So just talk us through that if you can, whoever thinks is best to take that on.
I'll jump in on that. The exclusive partnership with British Esports is a huge deal to us, for two main reasons, I'm going to say. One, it really validates what the students are doing as their degrees and as their experience here as a student. It's been checked by, the be all and end all of esports in the UK. And that feeds in from all the different nations there as well, because obviously British Esports has oversight for all the individual nations. And so they can kind of go anywhere in the UK. The other side of that is obviously British Esports on the global scale and what it's doing with the World Esports Olympics and that kind of World Federation aspect. They know that not only are they doing that, but they're verified by the group that's saying, actually, you can go to Korea to go do this. You can go to Saudi to go do this. You can go to the States to go do this. And you can build scenes in places that maybe are not as well known for esports as well. So that's number one. Number two is the ability for us to really engage in creation of that ladder from the very grassroots of young kids playing Minecraft when they're 5 or 6, because their mums and dads have gone, you need to go play some games. Not that all parents do that in any way, shape or form. But the point is that's how they start developing this love of learning. And we know from lots of pedagogy and loads of educational studies that students or students who engage at that age have better cognitive ability and develop all those kind of skills and develop some of those soft skills of communication. And I don't need to sell esports to the converted. The point is there's currently doesn't really exist internationally or nationally this level of, you start there, you go do GCSEs and do it, you go do the level 3 BTEC, and then what do you do afterwards? And that's where College of Esports comes in, is it takes it to that next level. It really sets you up ready to enter the jobs market, because inevitably some of these careers are quite in depth. There's multiple layers you've got to talk about there to really showcase that you understand how does marketing work in this world where actually, you know, traditional marketing degrees, fantastic, but they might not talk about marketing on Twitch and what that looks like and how to market to people who are using ad blockers and doing all those kind of things, because in those traditional spaces they don't do that. So that's the second part of it, is British Esports coming in and really talking about those elements. And also as a third arm is really working with us to give students opportunities. So Nik, I know you're very involved with Student Champs in terms of how that looks and operates, and giving our students the opportunities to do the broadcasts for those. So Professor Philip works really closely with Chester King to make sure that we have that relationship and we have that two-way discussion of what's good for the level 3 students so they can see where they can go as well, but also for our students to go, again, this is a safe environment for you to develop your skills, practice them, but actually have something to show for it. You can build a show reel from, you can build that kind of evidence for, to go into industry afterwards. And I can see Bubba's one that want to jump in now that he's back in the light. Let him jump in there.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned, well, first of all, yes, the partnership. Chester was here 3 weeks ago talking to all the first year students, and that was huge to hear from Chester King about the industry and ask tough questions that students had about the industry. And Nik, you mentioned like 2 years ago having these conversations about this university, and for me 2 years ago was the first conversation I had with Tom Dorr about this university, because my wife was looking at a potential job here in London with the ministry she works for, and what if we moved to London? Well, let me reach out. Tom said, hey, go check out College of Esports. And it was a 2-year process to get here through all the fun stuff that is moving countries. But that relationship, I think, is really, really great. And especially the level of global and international stuff through the Global Esports Federation, the International Esports Federation. You can't beat it, especially being this hub here in London with everything they do. So super excited about that partnership as well.
Yeah, and it's a question that I get asked regularly with dealing with various clients. In fact, this week I had another client, and they say, right, okay, can you give me the contact of British Esports, because I want to start a partnership with them, like the College of Esports has. And I take a deep breath and a bit of a sigh, and then say, right, okay, so what's your plan? And then they kind of ask, well, how do they do it? How does it work? And I said, well, you're the one that needs the plan. Like if you want to try and do anything, it's got to be good. Like College of Esports are at the top of the game, and that's why they've got it. They came up with something completely conceptually new, all those years ago, and it's taken this long to get it to where it is now. So it's not just a case of dropping them an email and they'll partner. There's much more to it than that. Right, before we move on, because I do want to show some photos, we've just got a quick question in the chat. So I don't know who wants to take this one on. But Eugene, it's a really good question. Are there any post-grad programs or plans? Because I'm assuming up until this year there hasn't been, because you haven't had the grads. So now that we've got some grads coming through at the end of the year, are there any post-grad programs? Is that something that the College of Esports are looking to do? So
there isn't any post-grads at the moment. However, we are in the process of developing those because, as I mentioned, it's that ladder creation. We started with the level 2 BTEC program, and now we can then say there's level 3 from BTEC and British Esports and Pearson. There's us doing undergraduate, and then we can also start developing those postgraduate routes. So you can become even more specialist in what you want to go do, and even more nuanced in your approach. But inevitably, in also such a new sector, there is a big discussion about what a postgrad will look like in this space. And relatively part of that is the research aspect. And so we're looking at how we can include that, because we don't know what happens in an esports team when certain things happen, and we don't know what happens with an esports event because no one's done that before. And so it's developing that postgrad to really meet the needs of not only the student but also the wider community, because there's so much unknown in the world of esports at the moment. So we are in the process of developing that, and hopefully will be an announcement in a not too distant future of when you can come and study that.
Okay, brilliant. And we shall look forward to that one, Lewis. And Chris is frantically sitting there saying, like, yeah, hopefully by the time I finish at the end of next year, there'll definitely be something for me. Right. So I'm going to leave this one. I'm going to leave this open to our panelists, because you would be far better placed to to discuss these photos. So all I've done is I've gone through today and just gone through LinkedIn and scrolled, pulled a few photos off. And like I say, there's so many that, I couldn't spend all day. So I've picked the ones that particularly stood out for me. And I know the career thing is a big thing, which is, something that I think is incredible. And, it's an amazing opportunity for the students here in the UK to visit Korea, the home of esports and all of those wonderful things. And, I've already made it very clear to Lewis that I'm more than happy to come as a member of staff to support at any point. So if we just look at these two photos that we've got here, who wants to talk to me about what we're looking at?
So again, because I'm in the photo, I'm going to start us off. This was the career trip we took this summer with 4 of our students for a slightly longer stay to go see our friends over in Genji in Korea. And whilst they were there, they got to do some work experience. As you can see from the photos, we also did some kind of cultural exchange elements. So one of them was going to LOL Park and getting a picture with the best character in League of Legends. That's right, it is Teemo. There is no other answer. And the other one was us getting to wear the national dress of Korea in hanbok. So that's the students in their outfits that they got to pick and develop. But I'm also going to throw it down to Chris, because Chris has also been to Korea with us. I took Chris on one of our first trips out there. So I'm going to let him explain about the kind of program a little bit more and what they got to do.
Yes. So how long did we go for, Lewis? Was it like 5 or 7 days?
7 days. 7 days we went when we went.
Yeah. So we went to Korea for 7 days with Genji. We did a whole bunch of different things. We got a tour of their headquarters. And we got to learn about like the Korean culture. There you can see in the photo, we've got Henry Kim. He was great. He was with Genji, showing us about the whole time. Was that LOL Park, the left-hand photo, Lewis?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so we went to LOL Park as well. And then on the right-hand photo, that was the second trip that the uni did. That was the culture day that we had, wearing hanboks. And that was the traditional palace that we went to. It was a really cool experience. Very thankful to have had the opportunity to go. I don't know many other universities, if any, where you sort of get that experience and spend the time with Genji. So yeah, it was really, really cool.
Yeah. And whilst we were there, we also got to have some special lectures from Genji and also some special lectures from industry professionals in Korea. So this time when we went over, we actually had a talk from College of Esports. They got to speak to the students about what that was in terms of creation of journalism aspects over there, which is obviously a fantastic opportunity for the students who, as a part of our tri-curriculum over in the UK, we've had Dom Sacco from Esports Insider come and speak to us, Esports News, and speak to students about what it is to be a journalist in esports over here. And so they've got that direct comparison there of the different scenes and what that looks like. We've also got the other aspect of the kind of Korean scene where we in the West, and particularly as you're looking at education, view Korea as being kind of the esports mecca. And so having the opportunity to actually go there, see that, showcase some different examples. I know when me and Chris went, we got to speak to Jordan Genji, who's the psychologist, and like he said, he's the only one in the entirety of the LCK in terms of the teams that are in there that's a professional psychologist who specializes in that area. Where we go, and we kind of all took a step back and went, well, hang on a minute, in Western esports, that's kind of a guaranteed position that a team at that level is going to have. So seeing those differences and getting to experience them in person is obviously a fantastic experience for the students. And hopefully at some point, Nik, we can take you with us.
That's the best bit of news I've heard all day. Something to do with just looking at those two photos, and we'll go on to some other photos. There's two things. There's some really. This is firstly, I've got the most uninteresting fact ever, which is when you were flying out to Korea at Heathrow Airport. I was in Heathrow Airport flying out to Chicago for the Esports Trade Association's next conference, and I was messaging Stuart saying like, "Where are they? I want to go and see them." But unfortunately, we didn't mix up. But we were in the same space. We were just headed in completely different, different things. And yeah, the other thing was Megan. I actually wanted to bring you in on those last photos as somebody with your experience in trade associations, and obviously now the Esports Trade Association. It must be great to see those kind of like cultural kind of like initiatives that are taking place. You know, where you've got the students picking, wearing cultural traditional outfits and those sorts of things to kind of like really bring that global feel together.
It's been really great. That has been probably the most exciting part, is working with so many people in so many committees, like we have here, this education committee, and, having a global voice and an inclusive, everyone is welcome. Anyone in business or governance, it's very rewarding bringing educators, brands, businesses, and government together. And that's what I was able to enjoy during my postgrad program. And it's something that we really enjoy doing here. We work with several universities, dozens and dozens, nationally and globally. So it's just really, we're grateful for what you're doing, Nik, as an example right here, just sharing with us a little bit about what's happening there in UK. And, maybe the next, I don't know what your next LinkedIn Live is, but it might be, I know you do work in South Africa, and, I know you're all over the place. I know I think you're in New York right now, actually.
No, next month.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to that.
So just providing a simple platform for what we do, what I've only done most of my career, is business to business trade association leadership and management.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm going to skip to this one, because this one is you, Bubba, by the looks of it, on the left.
There he is.
So talk us through this one. This looks interesting.
Well, it was so exciting. We didn't even know this book was in the building until maybe the next day, because it's been all the rage the past month with Tobias and Julie and Seth, all the people who are our uber nerd researchers in the esports classics. We follow their lead very much, and they of course got as many people as possible to add to this amazing book that's a War and Peace size large book, or Moby Dick book. It's huge. And they are one of the leads for our coaching, who I said earlier, they did rugby and other sports. So I even today got to get outside with his students and do some game activities with my event students, and we got to touch some grass. So it's not all video games here at the College of Esports. It is touching grass as well and getting exercise. But this book, the Rutledge Book of Esports, it was nice to see it, because we want to use it in our class structure and use it as a research tool. And we got to be peer reviewers, both of us, for different parts of the book. I think Maya got to do the scholastic side, and I think he did the psychological and coaching side. And we're just one of many people. So it was fun for us to feel appreciated, because we were part of history, to be honest, with this Rutledge Book of Esports.
Okay, excellent. And then just quickly, because I know you mentioned this earlier, Lewis.
I think we should go back to the previous one, because Chris was on the other one, and Chris's Society is in that first photo as well.
Yeah.
So do you want to explain what the right-hand picture was, Chris, and also maybe a little bit about setting up your Korean Language Society as well?
Yeah. So talking first about the photo that you can see on screen on the right-hand side, that was myself and 3 other students. We all go to the College of Esports. We were working an event with ESI London. It was over in Wembley and Box Park. We were all doing various different jobs. Myself and the guy standing next to me is Tom. We were working in the Epic LAN section, so ensuring that everything was fine in like the gaming area of the event, making sure everyone was happy and enforcing the rules that we sort of had in place as well. So we were working with ESI on the event on like a event day. So we were all communicating in a WhatsApp group, making sure everything was working and flowing as it should be. We also got to network with a bunch of really cool people as well.
Isn't there an interesting story, Lewis, about Chris and what happened there, right, Chris, about your skills?
I'm going to let you explain that one.
I'm not too sure.
I heard that you did such an amazing job, you might as well just taken over because you were doing so good helping out with behind the scenes stuff. This is what I heard from people that have, olderness, gray beards. So I don't know. This is true. You guys were that amazing that you might have got hired on the spot.
Well, I mean, we got to go back and work on ESI Lisbon, so there might be some truth in that.
Yeah. So the reason I brought it up, Nick, was this. I think this is a great example of really the purpose of the tri-curriculum is we try and facilitate our students actually getting hands-on experience of doing the jobs. Because like Chris said, not only did they work ESI London, which was the one-day event, they get to see what that looks like and deal with that kind of venue. But then Chris also got to come to Lisbon and see the multi-day event there, and also the SDC event that was connected with, and how much bigger and grandiose the kind of gambling event that was happening there was. So he's got, as an event student, he's got within the 2 events a little smorgasbord of little tasters, little samples that he can connect to and research back to, which is really our focus as educators. Yeah, the theory is fantastic, but if you can't apply that theory to actually what you want to go do and experience that, then it's not quite as worth it, if that makes sense. So it's a really good example of what our tri-curriculum means.
Okay, excellent. And I think the last photo before we take the photos down, it's a truly incredible facility. It was the velodrome built for the Olympics in 2012. And to think that it's now turned into the College of Esports in kind of like in the way that it's used. Don't worry, they haven't smashed in the racing track and put PCs there. The racing track is still there. When you go there, that's one of the privileges, is you've got your selfie moment where you've got the Olympic track behind you. But it really is just a stunning location, and the appeal alone to be at Stratford Park is incredible. Right, okay, if we can we've only got a couple of minutes left. So the last few things that I kind of really wanted to talk about were really loose things, really. So London Legion, talk me through London Legion, because it's really kind of starting to build a brand.
I'm going to let Chris jump in on this one because he's one of the students that works with London Legion from a broadcasting side, and then me and Bubba can probably finish up on the team aspect.
Okay. So first of all, like London Legion, that is the university or the institution's esports org. It's called London Legion, obviously because we're based in London. We compete in various different titles, and we also participate in like LAN events and things like that. So we have lots of different esports teams, and we compete in lots of different titles. We have lots of opportunities for students to get involved, to be players if that's what they want to do, or to go into sort of management positions. So they can be a coach, they can be like a competitive assistant, competitive director, work more behind the scenes and making sure everything as an organization flows and everything works essentially. But beyond that, like Lewis said, we have the sort of broadcast side, which I'm involved with. Then we also have our social media team, so they can get experience putting out social media content for like a esports organization. So when people want to get a job working in like the broader industry, they have sort of that experience, back it up, and show previous work that they've done.
Yeah, and the other aspect of that is it's the competitive side of London Legion. Inevitably, if you're a gamer, there is a level that you will play comfortably by yourself or with your friends, but at some point you will find a game that's competitive, whether that is Valorant and Call of Duty, or my favorite example of an esport, the XL World Championships. But it can also be, competitive Mario Party, whatever suits your needs. That has ruined more friendships than anything else. And so London Legion, what it does is allows us to kind of give those students that space to compete and to represent their institution and take some pride in what they're doing, and develop their skills. It also, like Chris alludes to, allows them to go to different lands, start developing that kind of grassroots scene of competitive gaming, no different to any other university level sport, but also then gets them to experience what that kind of scene is like, whether that is long may it rest in peace, in kind of going to the Insomnia BYOC area and competing in those kind of competitions, but also what the differences of a face-to-face on a stage kind of competition compared to just playing online, where that's a completely different vibe. There's a completely different level of work you've got to put in. And there's a completely different level of engagement you have to have as a player even. And so that's also where, myself and Bubba are constantly looking for opportunities for students to feel that and experience that at every level. Obviously with Insomnia going away, there's a slight void in the gap in the market at the moment, shall we say. But it's what we can do with that, post that. So whether that is, like I mentioned earlier, working with the Tri-Service Veterans Association and doing some in-person games against them, or doing an event for Special Effect and getting companies, students, different groups from all over the esports ecosystem in the UK together and go, right, let's have a game of, I don't know, Fortnite or Apex or whatever it might be. London Legion allows us to do that and really build that kind of ecosystem for everyone to enjoy.
I was just going to say if the people viewing in the United States, they're watching this, trying to understand the space, it is definitely a college or university team, just like we have the big events that we love down in Texas with the Collegiate Esports Commissioners Cup and 84 university teams. But what kind of blew me away, this team, in the States we can have university students competing in collegiate events, but they also will go into other rooms during those events and also compete in national pro events at the same time, because there's no sanctioning within NCAA in the United States. But here, what I really love, what just was crazy, was London Legion is also its own entity. So they are doing professional things outside of the university level. I don't know where else it's being done, so it's pretty amazing to watch.
I think that's the standout for me. It's seeing those things from what started out as an idea and a concept of a college team is grown into something far beyond that, which I think is incredible. Right, okay, so I'm going to wrap it up very, very shortly. Bubba's sat in the dark, and we can't have that. So a quick question for Megan before I do the roundup. So obviously your kind of like knowledge of the College of Esports before today was probably quite minimal. So just based on what you've heard, kind of like what are your thoughts, your impressions, and your general feel for why I've put this forward as the pinnacle of UK higher education?
Well, I've been an old friend of Bubba's. I think he was a founding member of the Esports Trade Association. And Bubba, I think you were on the second show. Was it the second? And James O'Hagan was on the first?
Yep. And that was even part of the education committee.
As a matter of fact, I think you formed the education.
Yeah, me and Danny Martin formed it, yep.
So, what I love about esports is it's really a small community. Everyone knows everyone, and if they don't, they will. So I love it. I love seeing UK, bring in some, American Bubba, shake it up and The courses sound really great. I know that Bubba loves production. He used to be, I don't know if you guys have Radio Shacks in UK, but we used to have these stores, and I used to hang out at a Radio Shack by my house growing up. So when anyone ever does production, I always say, did you grow up with a Radio Shack? And not only did Bubba hang out at a Radio Shack, I think his dad was the manager. And so, these are die-hard, let's execute production. It's in his veins. So I love it. I love bringing people together across the pond. And, that's what the Esports Trade Association is all about. We have to figure out how to get the chapter launched over in UK for you to continue what you're doing, Nik. And it's just been a pleasure to be with all of you and meet you, Chris, and hear about your journey, and Lewis, what this chapter is right now for you. So I couldn't be more pleased.
Brilliant. That's lovely to hear. And I think that's a good way to finish the LinkedIn Live event. Before I go, just needed to say a couple of things. If you're in the UK, or if you're not in the UK, but you fancy coming over to university, College of Esports on Saturday, the 9th of November, have their next open day. So I know everybody's welcome, and I know that they put on a good show. It's not just come in, have a look round, and okay, you might get to talk to a lecturer. There'll be lots of stuff going on. So do get yourself down to London for the open day on Saturday, the 9th of November. And then, as you've been seeing on screen this evening, Esports Trade Association. If you're not a member, you should be. It brings together people like we've got on the panel this evening, on a global scale. And you'll get to meet so many people. So please check us out if you're not already a member. Find the membership that suits you most. And then if you become a member and you're involved or interested in education, I'd love to see you come and join the education committee with me. We're only a LinkedIn message and email away from welcoming you on board into what is a truly great trade association. So for now, I just need to thank Megan, Lewis, Chris and Bubba for their time this evening in the UK at lunchtime over there. Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed it and really appreciate your time and your thoughts.
No, pleasure to be on. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Great show. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.